Hello, I'm Amanda Robbins, and welcome to Women in Government. I'm joined by two of our Councilmanic District representatives, Wilmington City Council members Shanae Darby and Michelle Harlee. You know these women as your local officials, and you see them in your neighborhoods every day. Today, we'll get to know them not only as political leaders, but women outside the titles. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Amanda.
So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Councilwoman Harlee.
Yes.
You recently became the first female finance chair on the Wilmington City Council.
Yes.
What does it mean to you to take on a role like that?
Well, so far, first of all, it is an honor to be able to add more value. Any position that I have, any title that I have, I look at it as how can I add more value. So I want to say so far, it has been interesting because I've been attending more committee meetings on the administrative side. So I was automatically thinking about like what's going on more on the administrative side for me to learn, get information, and figure out how we can add value to City Council as well. So just being more informed and to be able to make better decisions. So that's what it has meant for me.
And do you feel like there's an added sense of responsibility to set an example for other women?
100%. 100%. Not only in this position, but that has been my life mantra as it relates to being an inspiration, an example to my daughters first and foremost. I have daughters, so they're first and foremost to me in terms of being an example. And I've had the opportunity in my professional career to be a coach to female co-ops and interns that came into our company and into my organization. So yes, that's very important to me.
Very cool. So along those lines, I'll ask this question to both of you. What do you think is the importance of having female mentors and having those guides along your journey?
Yeah, I want to say for me, I think one, accountability, right? And I think about that with my friends or my mentors, like they hold me accountable to like my values, my character, and who I am as a person, right? And they check me, right? Like they could check me in a way that is with love, that is with guidance, and I appreciate those things. Also with having women in government to be your mentor, which I think is so key and important, is the wisdom. And that's what I get from a lot of my mentors who are women who are in government. I reach out to them for accountability and also for their wisdom, so that when I'm making decisions, I know what has happened, what they have done, and then I might assess that and say, I didn't like that, or I did like that, and then being able to make my own decision based on my own values, my own characters. And those are like what I really look for in like my mentors. And like for me, not even just women but general for mentors, I really look for people who have like impeccable character, right? So those are the things that I look for.
Yes. So as it relates to mentorship, so in this stage of my life, I'm more so on the side of being a mentor. And so first of all, being a mentor for me is being an example. Being able to share with other women in general, young, middle-aged, and my age, wisdom, my journey, my mistakes, my wins. I feel as though in the role of a mentor to be able to help them in a way where the mistakes that I've made, they don't have to make those same mistakes. Those gems that I received in terms of the wins and the successes that I've had. So from the mentor perspective, that's pretty much the role that I, play with my mentees, which I have several. And I've had mentors down through the years, and I have mentors for different areas of my life, because again, if it's a space that I'm new in or new to, I look towards those that have gone through the experience, they've had the journey, and I pick their brain. I want to know, what are some of your their wins, their failures. And so I think that's what mentorship is all about at a high level, is really trying to understand, learn what you can learn that works, and the things that didn't work, learn those as well, so I can be better at what I'm trying to do. Because at the end of the day, for me, it's not only about adding value, but it's also about impact. And of course, character and integrity, those for me, they go without saying. That's my personal mantra in terms of, how I show up in the world. You can always count on me showing up with integrity and character, because at this point in my life, that's just what I've been practicing. So that's what it means to me on both sides, being a mentor and being a mentee, just really learning what I can learn to be more effective.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to know, everyone's going to make their mistakes, but to know that, okay, there's a mistake that I don't have to make in order to learn. I can learn from somebody else,
Yes.
Which I think is really cool. And along those same lines, Councilwoman Darby, you've been a leader in the community for a long time in so many different areas. You have your own nonprofit, you're on city council, and you serve in the Army National Guard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So what is it like to be a leader in nearly every area of your life?
I don't know. I feel like this is like cliche when people ask me the question, like, and what I'm about to say, but I was kind of born like this. Like, I don't know how to explain or say that, but I always have been put into leadership positions. Like, I ran for student government, always won, and became president at school. Like, my class in high school still considers me the class president and, like, wants me to plan. Like, I have always been that point person in my family and my group of friends to always be the one to take the lead. I have been very vocal, like, my whole life, and very inquisitive, right? And asking a lot of questions and doing those things. So, like, one, I think of several words, right? I think of it as, like, sometimes it's overwhelming. And I think it's like my calling to be in, like, these leadership roles that I'm in, because I try to get away from it and it comes back. It comes back. Like, you belong in these spaces. We're going to put you in these spaces. You're going to be requested. It's going to be unexpected. You end up in this role. And that's what has happened for me as I think about, like, my leadership journey and where I am. But, like, running my nonprofit, like, I just saw a need, right? It was like, there has to be solution, because what can we do? How can I do it, right? And even before, like, being in, like, more public facing things, and I think about my community advocacy before that, I worked at Wilmington Job Corps Center, working with young youth throughout the city of Wilmington. I was a mental health therapist to a lot of the youth here in the city of Wilmington. So in that, like, I really felt like that was, like, I knew that I wanted to be grassroots, right? Like, I wanted to be a part of my community and talk to the people who don't go to the NPC meetings, who don't get to make it to Civic Associate. Like, that is my niche in my group, because that's where I come from, right? So for me, I'm very grassroots oriented, grassroots advocacy. Leadership has, like, it's just a part of, like, who I am as a person. And even, like, joining the National Guard, like, doing these things, teaching, being able to talk about community organizing on a national scale and go and teach people how to be organizer, like, those things. And what I really love about it is that true leaders don't show their hand, right? So, like, you might see the impact happen, or you might have been behind the reason why something happened, and you're just like, I'm happy it happened, right? And you're smiling at home like, I made that impact. And I think that's, like, what I really value about being a leader.
Yeah, that's really cool. And being specific district council members, I think going to the grassroots side of it, you're both involved in your communities at a hyper-local level. I mean, you really know what's going on. You have a pulse as to what matters to your district. So do you see a lot of women in your districts following your lead as, like, head of the civic associations, the NPCs, other grassroots organizing?
So as it relates to that question, let me just go back to the fact that I was a grassroots community person before getting elected. And when I say grassroots, I mean I actually was a civic association president. I was a neighborhood planning council president. I worked within the community with strategic plans and things of that nature. And so one of the things that I realized when I decided to run for this seat and wanted to connect with the different civic associations that were in the 4th District, I realized that there were a number of civic associations on paper, but they were not active. So I thought that it was my responsibility to figure out, like, why they were not active. And once I realized what was going on, I actually because I had relationships in the community, I began to groom other females. And I can say today that I've groomed 3 to 4 females to become civic association leaders and also neighborhood planning council leaders. So not just, in the professional realm, not just in my church realm, but in the community. So it's very important, I think, to help to identify, and that's one of the things that I've been pretty effective in as well, is being able to identify other leaders, to be able to really take the baton once I move on. I do believe I'm more so a builder, and then I want to move on. That's one of the things that I've learned about myself, looking at my professional career. I had 3 careers with one business. When I tell people, how long I was at my previous company, I had literally 3 careers. So I like to build, learn what I need to learn, and move on and pass the baton on. And I see that the same way in the community. I'm always identifying individuals. Now, sometimes I do look for men, but it seems like the women show up and the women are ready, but I'm ready to help them, to groom them, to encourage them. And right now, even on the East Side, the president of the East Side, I pulled her along. I told her she could do it. I could see her as a leader, and she's in that role, and she thanks me all the time for just pulling her and encouraging her. So yes, I think that it's important, and I just feel as though it's our job as a leader to identify other leaders as well.
Yeah, and I think about that question. So for the last 3 years, I teach on a community grassroots level how to be a community organizer, like how to do this work. So I had probably 7 cohorts at this point of individuals who then I see go off and then do their own issue campaigns, pass policies. They're running for a school board. They're doing these things after we did that 8-week course. It's called Ella J. Baker's Black Organizer course. So I think I'm going into like year 4 of teaching it. So I think about those people that I have mentored through that, and they continuously come back, what about this? Or I need to think through this thing, or this happened, right? Coming to me for that guidance and stuff I think is so key and important. And another group of people that I think of is, so everyone, because I run Black Mothers in Power, people think I'm like a nonprofit guru and I can find all this money. Like, it's really overwhelming and stressful, right? But I get a lot of young women and women who live in my community who comes to me and say, how did you do that? Right? So I find myself a lot of times like teaching them like about the nonprofit world. What do you have to do? Because what happens a lot of times in my community, there's people on the grassroots doing the work, but they don't know the formal parts of like,
that's right,
how to get the 501c3, how to do that. But they've been doing the work for years, right? And so for me, it's like, how do I give them that knowledge, that guidance, so that they can, if they want to go this path or route, getting them to be a little bit more formalized so they can get access to that big money from Longwood Foundation or Laffey McHugh or all these other things that exist, right? Yes. So I think about those like 2 groups of people. And then some national organizations I'm a part of is for like council members. And a few of them I'm in like some Black groups, some women groups, some different ones. And in the women group, we have really been able to build like a community and mentor each other and be mentees, like that 2-way relationship. And that has been helpful for me because sometimes being a council person, my family and friends don't understand. Like, I'm the only one in my family or friend group who's really into this political life stuff, right? Or like really deep into like community organizing. So like if I'm coming home and I'm trying to explain to you something that happened on council, it won't all the way click, right? But if I call one of my council member colleagues from across the country and like, girl, this happened at council today. Like, this is what I'm feeling. What do you think I should do? What advice do you give me? Like that, having that connection has been there's some days I have cried on the phone with them. There are some nights that I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like this council political work, because it can be so overwhelming in regards to trying to fight systems that have been existing for so long, and they just keep continuing to do the same thing. So yeah, I think that was a good question. I haven't thought about that much. I kind of just do the work, and I don't think about it as like those things.
Very cool. Yeah. For both of you, kind of along those lines as well, this is not your first term on city council, so you've kind of had the chance to learn a little bit about how it works, connect with others that do it. Does it feel like there's a difference in how you approach your position now versus how you approached it before?
So yes, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I first started, my focus was really understanding the space, and I have to be perfectly honest with you. Coming from a corporate background to government, it was like a culture shock. I really could not believe how the gray areas. There's like all gray areas in government, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, but in a corporate environment, it's black or white, and everything is like very standardized. You know, there's protocol, there's practices, and you adhere to them and you comply to them. So that's sort of like what I've been groomed to do all of my career, right? And then I get into government, and I'm like, whoa. So my first term, it was all about me understanding this space and understanding, reading, trying to just figure out, you know, what does a legislator do and things of that nature. But fast forward to the story, now here, the question, I pretty much recognize and realize, you know, with my district, and every district is different. So my first 2 terms, I really focused on what did my residents need, the people that elected me, going to civic associations, listening, talking to different groups here and there in the community to find out what their needs were. So this term, I really feel like since I have residential and business constituents, I have the most nonprofits, I have the most churches, I have the most businesses, in addition to residents. I mean, going back to the census, you know, it's statistically proven in the 4th district, I have the highest number of everything. So I feel as though it was only right for me to give some attention to my non-profits, the churches and businesses. So that's pretty much, you know, my take on this 3rd term. I've learned a lot, and so now I'm balancing out, you know, I know what my residents need for the most part, just listening to them for the first 2 terms, and now I'm doing something new. I feel like I wanted something more challenging. I mean, I feel as though the first term, you know, you pretty much go to council, you go to committee meetings and things of that nature, but it's about like, what does my constituency need? So that has always been, you know, my go-to point. Like, what do they need? What do they need? So now in this 3rd term, I'm trying to understand what those other demographics need in my 4th district.
I feel like for me in my first term, it was like, how do I be active and learn at the same time, right? And I think I was really good at being able to pull in like outside consultants and people and groups in to provide us with a lot of expertise. We had the fees and fines from the National League of Cities. We had the Landlord Engagement Lab. We got a grant with one of them to be able to do some like really grassroots work. So I feel like that. I think the toughest thing, honestly, for me was one, learning that, and then also I think for me, the administration change has been a big game changer for me this 2nd term. There's things that I've been wanting to do, like get my park fixed. I've been advocating for 4 years, putting it into the budget, asking, making requests. Nothing happened. Within a matter of like 90 days, because we're going to count the rest of March, I have been able to get like blueprints from my park, right? So now I feel like this time around, there's even a different dynamic between council and administration, council and council members. Like, I feel like the environment is a lot more positive, because I think in my first term it started off in a very negative way, which then set the precedent for the rest of those 4 years in regards to like council things that was happening and that. But I'm so glad that is over. Mental health put me in the cuckoo house. I was ready to quit. But this time around, like, people are like, we need you in these seats. Like, you have to be here. And I'm like, all right. So, but I'm so glad that this time around so far, I have been able to, all the things I've been talking about for the last 4 years, and within 90 days, get it rolling and started with this administration. So for me, I'm coming in way more knowledgeable. Like, I don't have to learn how budget hearing works. I did 4 of them, right? I don't have to learn who is in charge of public works. I know this person already. I built a relationship with them already, right? So those things are very different, where I'm able to get things done quicker and I know who to go to. So that's what I'm loving about this term, is way more positive, okay? And just having the knowledge from over my 4 years.
Yeah, and you said something key there about somebody saying to you, we need your voice, we need you in this seat. So kind of going with that, in the 107th session, about halfway through, we established a female majority of council when the late great Councilwoman Linda Gray joined. And since then, it has been a majority of females all the way through now, the 109th. Do you see more women's issues coming up, more things that are relevant to women coming up in these sessions now?
So as it relates to that, when you look at government, as we know, like every level of government has a different level of authority. So I see that, honestly, not so much on city council as much as I have noticed it on the state level. So when you think about city council, county council, the General Assembly, and federal, like we all have our areas where we can make more impact as it relates to policies. So to answer your question, I want to say yes, because not only does research prove that when you have women involved in government, that we tend to be more focused on families, more focused on our communities. And I see that somewhat on council, but due to our level of authority, we do what we can, but I do, to answer your question, yes, I've seen females making a difference, especially down at the General Assembly. And I know we're talking about Wilmington City Council, but I think about our city and state as a whole. So yes, because we tend to look at those things, I think just by our gender, that is more nurturing. We want to make sure that, I guess our families and communities are taken care of. That's sort of like how I feel in terms of the impact that we've made. And then yes, there have been some specific things, I feel as though as women that we think about, not that men don't think about those things, but just by our gender and being nurturers, we want to make sure certain things are taken care of within our purview to do.
Yeah, so you're saying that the perspective of women is what makes it a little bit different.
I think so.
That's great. Do you feel in these spaces that there's a different set of expectations for you as opposed to your male colleagues?
Really quick, I want to say representation matters, right? And I think that we're a majority female, African American, city council, I think that matters, right? But I think I want to agree exactly what you're saying. We don't, our jurisdiction and what we have authority over saying or doing, really, there's not a lot of gender-based things we can do. The state has been doing phenomenal work on that, because it's more female legislators. But in regards to, I feel like there is a different expectation because I am a woman. Right? There are times that there have been past council people or men who have been loud, cursed, argued with each other, right? They didn't say anything. When women do those things, right, it's like, oh, you should be more ladylike. And I will never forget when I first ran for city council, a man told me that I should be home with my kids and not trying to run for office, right? And I was like, well, I had this discussion with my family, and then on top of that, I am a single mom. So on top of just being a woman, I am a single mom with 3 daughters, right? So his perspective of me being able to even sit in this seat, he couldn't imagine that, right? He couldn't think that that was a possibility, that I should be home with my 3 kids. Why am I worried about being in politics, right? I should be one of the very first ones worried about politics, right? Because of all of the demographics that I hit. But so for me, I definitely think there's a different expectations to the respectability politics on how women should act, how men should act, how you should act in government. I think all of those played a role in comments that I heard and different things I just have heard from people in regards to comparing how you would do things versus how a man would. So I definitely agree with that. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I want to just piggyback off of what you're saying. I do agree with Councilmember Darby in terms of, there is a different expectation. But I don't know. My feeling that I have right now is that I think that, and I'm not saying all men, but it seems like the men got a little more respect to me. Men that were on the council. 107, I go back to 107, and I'm thinking about right now, yeah, I do, and not all men, But
Of course.
generally,
Yeah,
yeah,
of course,
generally,
not all.
yeah.
Trippy was my biggest supporter.
Generally speaking, I don't want to speak generally that all men, but I do think a lot of things, play into that. I think age, far as, how men think about their perspective. That's what I want to say. Your age and your perspective in terms of, your worldview. So I do think all of that comes into play no matter what space you're in. And for example, like our previous administration, I'm just making a point, just understanding, like when I'm talking to him and we would have conversations, he always reminded me of a male that's 70 plus years old because of the time that, he lived in and how the world was. So I'm saying that to say that I do believe that age, your worldview, and all of that have a bearings on how, individuals look at women. So there's some men, some women look at us as, we're world shakers and history makers. And I love that because, we are doing some great things. And when you look at research shows you that Black women especially, we're the ones that are busting the ceilings right now. So I think it depends on the individual and perspective. But yes, I do think that there is a different expectation, and for some it's a pro and for some it's a con.
Yeah, I just want to add, I love that you said not all men, because even there have been men who have supported me since day one. With my political endeavors, especially older Black men who've been in politics. I was reached out to by so many of them, like Twin B, Herman Holloway, the previous state rep. They wrapped their hands, their arms around me to provide me with a lot of accountability, protection, and navigating throughout this political process. So it actually was mainly men. And when I first ran for city council, I was Trippy was the council president at the time, President Congo. And I was like, well, you have money and name. I can't run against you. So I sat down with him. It was what's your, your plans or your move? And then ever since then, he was like, I want to make room for younger people. I'm going to move on and do something different. And I'm going to support you. And he's a man, right? So I have definitely gotten support from men, but there is a different expectation.
Yes, it is. So, yeah. and it could go either way, depending on the individual. On the individual, but the expectation, and I can't say if it's pro or con. It depends on the individual, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's always going to be an individual perspective, and things are subjective always. So you're never going to get one blanket viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yes. But looking forward in the political space, it's obviously becoming more and more common to see women and minority women in office. So do you think we're past the point of breaking glass ceilings, or are there still some to shatter?
For specifically government stuff or in overall?
Touch on whatever you'd like.
That's a hard question to answer.
I would say yes, right?
You think we're done? Or
no, it's more.
Oh, it's more. Yeah. It's
right.
way more. I think the ceiling has been cracked. And we're going through it. But even though we crack and we make accomplishments, there's still barriers outside of that. So even how women get paid compared to men, right? So we're breaking ceilings. We're getting into professions, but I'm in the same profession as a man, and I get paid the same, or I get paid less. And then when you add race to it, Black women get less paid than white women for the same level of education, same experience. So we're breaking ceilings, but we're still impacted by systemic stuff that exists. So it's I think we're breaking them, but then also how are we addressing the systemic issues that then impact how we're treated once we break the ceiling? So,
I agree with that, and I will also say, because I experienced in my last career, I always say I had 3 careers, right? So in the last career, even though every year I met every critical operating task. I met every objective. I still felt like I always had to continually prove myself. Whereas my male colleague, it was like once he achieved and once he, did whatever I was doing, that was it. And it was assumed that he was ready. But for me, I had this feeling like every time that I had to do something I already did, like this vibe and energy, I felt was like, will she really achieve what she's supposed to do? Even though like year after year, like 5 or 6 years, I did the same thing. So I've showed up like, yeah, I'm going to succeed this time too, in my mind, because that was the energy. And I feel as though sometimes it's not about what people are saying, it's the energy that you feel sometimes when you show up in a room. And especially I was the only female and the only black female, so with men, and they were white men. So you could imagine what I was dealing with most of the time. But after a while, I was comfortable in my own skin, and I just feel like we have to really be on our A game every time. Like we don't have the luxury of being able to slip. I felt like every time I showed up, I had to be on my A game, have my act together, have everything together. And I'm not sure if my male colleagues felt that way, because I don't feel as though that they were given or treated the same way. Like my male colleague, like I could say something in a room and he would say something, my colleague, my male partner who I work with, it was just 2 of us, and when he said it, everybody responded in a completely different way. And I noticed that like several times. So I felt like it was because he was a male and I was a female. Like, oh, he said it. So it was like, yeah, thumbs up, thumbs up. Everybody was like, thumbs up. And I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah, there's not even a feeling. I want to say there's data and statistics and research that shows the difference between how men and women are treated, how specifically black women are treated. And we always feel like we have to work. It's like from a child, you always feel like you have to work 2 or 3 times harder just to be on par with everyone else. So it's like always that pressure, which is good, but also a bad thing because it plays on a lot on specifically when I think of black women and women in general, like on our mental health and how we operate and show up in the world too, because like this notion of being like a strong black woman, right? That has like, it's great like to be strong and to have that as your tool, but leading with that has been detrimental to a lot of black women's like mental health and physical health and operating in this world and even in government and like any other workplace I can think of. It has been a detriment, but also we're great. We're good at what we do. We are just as great as anyone else. So
and, yes, and again, I want to just add to that, regarding this image of a strong black woman, I want to just speak to that. Like, I never want to be looked at as a strong black woman. I want to be looked at as a confident, resilient black woman. I'm a girly girl to the bone. I want to always show up with my feminine energy. However, when I was in certain spaces, I felt like the pressure was there for me to have to exude this male energy. I never ever want to exude male energy ever, but being in certain environments, being a female in an all male environment, and of course, white men, I felt like, okay, I was being almost forced to exude this male energy. However, I feel as though it has not always served me well, wanting to show up with my female feminine energy, because sometimes men don't look at you as being as strong if you want to show up with your female energy. I know that's a different kind of answer, but that has been my experience, wanting to show up with confidence and a resilient energy and spirit, but not like a strong woman, period. Whether black or white, doesn't matter. Like, I just wanted them to know that I'm capable, I am competent, and I'm confident, and I'm here with my female, feminine, equal energy. That's how I always want to show up and to be seen by my male counterparts.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility to carry. And on top of being a council member, which is essentially a 24/7 on-call job, they say it's part-time, but I don't truly believe that.
If you're doing it right, it's not part-time.
It's not.
So what do you ladies do to stay centered, to relax, to kind of have fun? Like, what is something different?
So for me, I always try to put my family first. So I have 3 daughters. So I try not, in the midst of my busy life, like they are a priority. I try not to miss a dance recital, a gymnastics meet. Like all of those things are like priority for me, and I'm really happy. I love being a mom. But outside of being a mom, I try to like make sure I stay in good relationship. I like having good female friends around you is so important, right? I think that is so key to like my mental health, and they'll remind me, Shanae, you're doing too much. We need to go out tonight. I'm coming to get you, and we're going out, right? Put the laptop away, right? You know, like you have to have good friends who see you, who know you, and who's going to vouch for your mental health. I think that is so key and important. But I love music. I love dancing. I love going out. I'm a reader. And I love those things. I really enjoy being in my backyard. I had just got my backyard redone and just enjoying the sunset and just being like doing nothing sometimes. Like that's what I'm learning. But I also got selected to go on a healing retreat for Black women. So I'm going to that in a few weeks. So I'm learning to tap into those networks so I can take breaks and plug out of life for a few days and do those things. So I'm trying to get better at like vacationing and like actually plugging off. Usually when I go on vacations, I'm still doing something on my phone. So I'm trying to learn how not to do that. So yeah,
I was thinking about what you said about unplugging. Like that is a struggle and a challenge for me,
Yes.
I think, to unplug. Even when I'm supposed to be unplugged, even if I'm not doing the work, sometimes I'm thinking about like what I have to do.
Yes.
So I'm working on that. I am better at that. But of course, my family is first and foremost, and having adult children, it makes it so easy, you know, to connect, go out, do something relaxing, because they're always reminding me, they're always planning things for me, and I thank God for them, because they're like, hey,
I can't wait to have adult daughters.
I know. Listen, it's nothing like it. It's nothing like it. They plan trips to Jamaica, to Washington, D.C. So spending time with my family is a way that I kind of like chill and relax. But for me personally, there's a number of things, you know, traveling, reading, listening to music, and I like to dance. I like line dancing. I love line dancing. But my number one thing that I do like every week or every other week is karaoke. That's the way I decompress. I don't think about absolutely nothing. The environment, everybody's positive, everybody's happy in the karaoke, you know, room. So I absolutely love that, and that's really good for my mental health. So that's what I do to decompress.
That's really cool. That stuff sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for being here today, and also thank you for your voices and for what you do for our communities. I think it's really important, and it's important to highlight the women that, you know, are in our communities doing the work. So thank you again so much for being here, and thanks for watching Wilmington.
Thank you.